Right. So, like I was saying, I said the primitive data type can also be referred to as what? The primary what? Data type. Okay, so let's quickly look at some of let's list out. What I'm going to do is that let's explain them first. So let's look at the composites or the reference data type. Remember, I said the entire data types in JavaScript can be summarized into what? Two categories. The primitive data type and the what? The composite or the reference data type. In brackets, another word that can qualify them as composites or reference is secondary data type. So these are secondary, these are advanced data type. Yes, in brackets, you can write advanced data types, secondary data types. So let's quickly take them one after the other. Let's start with the primitive data type as heading. And then because I have, I don't know if I've defined the primitive. Okay, let me just recap again. So the primitive data types are the basic data type across all programming languages. They are the basic data types across all programming languages. It is not only JavaScript. And that is why I told us the other day that once you have been trained on one of the core programming language, learning the next programming language will not be what? Difficult. You know why? By the time we get to PHP, which is another core what? Programming language in your web development, we are still going to start the way we are going like this. We are going to go back to variable in PHP. Then go to what? Data type in PHP. Because the syntax for writing them, they are not the same. But the meaning remain what? The same. If you want to learn Python now, the same thing. You will start from what? Python variable. And then followed by what? Data type. Because the syntax are not the same. So let's quickly focus on this primitive data type. I said these are what? The basic, right? Data type. Now, additional notes, these data types are built-in data type. They are built in. That is, they are already constructed within the language. They are already constructed within the language. That is why they all have their constructors. We are going to learn that soon to know what is called a function for declaring what? String. A function for declaring number. Okay, so let's look at the example of this. Said they are built-in data type. Are you with me? For somebody who got that last part, please, you can read it out for him. I know there's another statement I made there. Now, let's take the one after the other. So the very first one I'm looking at under the primitive data type is the string. Yes, example of what? Primitive data type. The first one is called the string. The string. Now, in programming generally, right? I'm defining string now. In programming generally, the term string means text, in quotes. The word string means what? Text. For example, prosper is a text, right? It's not a number. Eloho is also what? A text. It's not a number. So anytime you are working with texts in programming, professionally, you have to be using the word what? String. 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 Okay? Now, notes. Notes. Strings or texts in JavaScript does not have a function instead, they are recognized with quotes, either double quotes or what? Single quotes. They are recognized with quotes, either double or single word quotes. So now the best way I'm going to be playing around this data type is for us to be creating variables and seeing how to work with them. So write example of string variable declaration. Write it that way, or you can just write string variable declaration. String variable. So I'm using variable concept to explain them. Declaration. All right. So what is the task? I want you to write it because I want to give them to us as if we are creating them to solve a problem. So the task is, what is a task that will lead to you creating what? A string what? Variable. The task is create a variable that holds my name. And what is your name? Let's say Prosper. So within your program or your app, you want a variable to what? To hold what? Your name. Probably because you will need it in the course of what? The programming. So remember the syntax. So it's going to be my name. I have first name, I have middle name, and I have what? Probably what? Last name. So let's say I want to create a variable that will hold these three names. So I'll start with what? First name. Make sure you are writing what I am coding. First name. Now, there is something I want to explain to us here. Under, I think we highlighted principles or rules of variable naming, right? Talk about that in the last class, right? Where I said a variable should not start with number, right? Good. Now, when it comes to case, how many of us know what is called case or casing in word processing? What is case or casing? Whether it's capital or what? Good. Now, most programmer uses camel case when programming with JavaScript and other core programming language. So we have camel case. We also have Pascal case. These are some key programming case. For example, if I look at it now, my variable is expected to have two names, and it appears that we have already used what? First underscore name, right? So I'm not going to put underscore. So now, what type of case is this? This is what? Camel case. Why is it camel case? Camel case is when only the first is when the entire first word letters are in lowercase, while the beginning of the rest words starts with what? Capital letter. That is what we call what? Camel case. Now, the term camel is derived from the back of what? The camel. You know, it's like this, right? The hodge. It will go like this. So which means that if I roll it now, that is how it's going to go. Now, so it is not compulsory that you add underscore. Okay? Now, based on the type of value we want to store in this variable called string, remember what I told you, that it must be acknowledged with what? Either double quote or what? Single quote, because it is a string. It is a text. That is the principle. Across all programming languages that I know, I have not come across any programming language that recognizes text without what? Quoting it. So let's say I'm storing what? Eloho. That is my first name. And remember one of the instruction I gave to us last time, that when you are writing your JavaScript, you must terminate the line of your code where you feel you have come to the end. And the language, the way you can speak that to JavaScript is by putting what? Semicolon. Okay. Now, if there is not going to be another code coming under it, if you do not put the semicolon, there won't be any error. Why? Because what? There is no code to execute after what? This first line. But where you will have issue is that if you now play smartness by coming here and start writing another code when you have not terminated what? The first one, JavaScript will throw what? Error. So always learn to do that. Okay, now there's that my middle name is equals to is a string. So I want to use single quotes just to also verify that it is possible. So my middle name, for example, is Egwero. And then I need to also what? Terminate it. So now these are what? Okay, let's create a last name so that you can see more examples of string variable. Prosper. All right. So how many string variable we have created so far? 3, right? And remember, I told us that anytime you store a value in a variable in JavaScript, for you to display those values to the visitors or the users of your website, you have to consult one of the words, the output word function, where I explained that it's not like HTML that you could just create a tag and then just supply the content and then it will display automatically. It doesn't work that way when you are working with what? JavaScript. You must use a container element to display it, which is what? Your HTML what? Element. There must be an element you use in rendering. The word render here or render here means what? To display it via browser to what? To the users or to the visitors. So for that reason, I want to create another p tag with a different ID. Why? Because I have used that ID to what? Remember that we have used this particular ID to output one of the content. To avoid conflicts, I want to give another ID to the what? Demo what? 2. Okay, so what I intend to achieve with this is just an element that can render content on what? A browser, because we understand that JavaScript cannot write directly on what? The browser. Now, here, what I want to output an expression. I want to output an expression. For example, I want to say on the user's interface that my biodata are, then it will not display what? Eloho in one line, not on the same line. Display what? Egwero on a different line, not the same line. And then what? Prosper, just like the way they are listed here. Now, from our HTML knowledge, we all know that this display is called what? Are they? This display is called what? You know the reason why I'm calling you. If you are sensitive, how come I'm calling only you? Do you know the reason? What's the reason? Eh? Thank God. Like you are a teacher. Your mother a teacher. Now, what type of display is this? I will call another person, not because the person is distracting me. You are seeing me from the screen. I should know that I'm pointing at you. what is his name? This guy sitting close to you. V3. What type of display is this from our HTML knowledge? Where item take fresh line or where item are not displayed on the same line. That is taking different line. What type of display is it called in HTML? I'm waiting. We have not written any test all this while, have we? No test, right? When is our next class? Today is Thursday, right? On Tuesday, there will be test. Area of concentration, everything you have learned from HTML till this place. V3, what type of display is this? Block. This is block. So that is what I want to achieve. I'm not just interested in displaying everything. I'm interested in displaying it in what? In block, because there's a logic we are going to apply. So now, to display, let's write, to display the variable, the above variables, values in block. Using inner using inner, I think inner should be double N, have it? Inner HTML. Using inner HTML display method. Inner what? HTML display method. So the first step is go to your HTML file and create an element with an ID. Write these steps, particularly now that you are still trying to come up. Go to the HTML file and create an element with an ID, demo, or with an ID. So it's not left for you. In my own case, my element ID is what? Demo2. So I'm taking note of that. And create an element with an ID. So you can now say e.g., maybe what? E.g., you write this line of code just to remind you. Just copy the whole of this area that I highlighted. E.g., p ID equals to demo2. Then note, these elements will be used to render the JavaScript variable value on the browser so that you know why you are creating it. These elements will be used to render JavaScript value on a browser. These elements will be used to render JavaScript value on a browser. And the elements will be selected from JavaScript with the ID assigned. And the elements will be selected from JavaScript with the ID assigned so that you understand the communication. Are we still communicating? With the ID assigned. All right. So now let's go back to our JavaScript and write the statement. Now I want to pay attention here. In the process of outputting all this value in block, I am shipping in context that was not captured in any variable. What is the content? Look at what I said I want the users to see. My biodata are, is there any place where you have stored biodata? Sorry, my biodata, what I'm saying now. Is there any variable here that is storing it? No. Now, in that case, where you are printing variable values together with a string that is not captured in any of the variable is called JavaScript what? Expression printing. That is what, instead of them just seeing the value, you are giving a description. What will enable them to know, oh, this value that I'm saying, they are biodata of what? Someone. Okay? Now, remember I said we are using inner HTML, which means that trying to use a logic. Okay, so which means that we will say what? Document dot, right? Dot what? Get elements. Remember that this word is case sensitive. I mean, of course, I've observed it. This is camel case, right? From here. The B is what? Capital letter. The I is capital letter. Then you open the bracket. And then because the ID is a string, are we together? The ID, which is demo2, is it a text or a number? Is a string, right? That is why we have to use either single or what? Double. Then write what? The demo2, the way it is. Now, the whole of this is a method that will be using an ID to select HTML element and store it in what? HTML storage in JavaScript, which is what? This. And then equate it to what? To the list of what? The variables you want to output their value. Now, just before we go with the way we plan it, so that you understand the logic I'm going to bring in for me to be able to display all this in a different line. So if I just say what? If I copy this the way it is here, Ctrl+C, and then I come here and paste it, right? And then I concatenate by saying what? Plus. Are we together? Plus. Plus means what? Concatenation. Now, plus middle name, Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V, then plus what? Last name, plus last name, Ctrl+C, and then I end the code. So if I go back to, where do I see it? Which file will I render to see the result? The HTML. So I have to go back to the HTML, right click, then use your file server. Where is it safe? Yeah, as my extension for displaying or updating my browser. So let's see if we are going to see. Now, who can tell us the challenge we are facing here? All the tests are meshed together. There's no space, right? So to solve this kind of issue first, it means that you go back to your JavaScript and concatenate space. Concatenation of space or the break should always come after what? The plus operator. So I will now say what? Do this, and then put another word plus there. Are you following? Then it should come after the plus. Add this, and then another plus. But I do not need space between the last one, right? So if I go back to the front end and check now, you can see that what? You have added what? Space. But what we want to add what? My biodata. And not only that, we want Egwero to be in the next line and then Prosper, not to display all of them on the same line, which is inline. So to achieve that, so I'm going to bring that statement before the calling of the first variable. And I'll put that in a string on its own, in a different string, before I will now what? Concatenate it to the plus. So the whole of that, which says what? My biodata are, so you can see it now. So if I go back to the browser, you see that what? I have that information before the what? The variable value. Why did I put it in in string because it's a text, right? And it has not been captured in any word variable. Okay, now let's break it. To break it, you will concatenate break. After here, before the space. So in that case, since we are bringing a break, there's no need for what? There's no need for the space now, right? Good. So let me remove that first before. So, but the plus is this. I'll say concatenate. I will borrow HTML element. I will use string and plus. What is HTML element to go to the next line? Is what? This, right? B what? R. Do you still remember this? So I'll copy this. That is what. So after this, there should be, this one should go down. And then here, I think we still need the whole of this in just one more place. Then we need it here after this plus. It should always come after the plus, and then there should be plus. So if I go back to the front end, you can see that what? So we still need to what? Break what? This one to come down. So where do you think we are going to add the break now for that one to come down? We are going to add it here. That after displaying this, then concatenate what? Break. All right. So if I go back to the front end, I have my content. So 10 minutes break, and then you give me exactly this. You can put your names if you don't want to promote my name. 10 minutes, quickly. So this is how to create string what? Variable. So what we have practiced so far is the string as one of the primitive what? Data type in Python. Now let's quickly look at integer. Let's look at integer, or let's look at number data type, right? Number data type in JavaScript. So that number is another example of primitive data. It is another example of primitive data, which can be divided into two types. Which can be divided into what? Two types, such as integer numbers and float number. And what? Float numbers. Are we together? So let's also try it with an example. So what is the task? Or let me just break down the differences between the integer number and what? Float number. Note, the integer number means whole number. JS. Integer number means what? Whole number in JS. For example, 80 is an integer. So if I write 80 is an integer, comma 90 is an integer, 2 is an integer, 100 is an integer. So once it is whole number, it is what? An integer. Let's look at the second type of number, floats or double. Floats or double numbers are numbers with decimal units. They are number with decimal units. They are numbers with what? Decimal units. E.g., 80.5. Once you carry decimal point, it's no longer integer. Becomes what? It floats. It becomes floats. All right. So let's quickly work with some variable. So what is the task? Create number, or let's say create integer. Create integer variables and perform some calculation. So for example, let's say variable s is holding 80, semicolon to end that line. Variable c. So at first, what we are supposed to do, let me show us this. You are supposed to be accompanying your variables with what? The keyword. So let's say what? Let's say let's x, comma, c, comma, d, end it. So that is just like you just created what? Empty what? Containers. We are here to put value inside them. So you now say where s, so you are now adding value inside now. Where s is 80, or where s should be holding 80, while c should hold 90, and then d will give us the